You know, I think we've got that coming back ahead of us in April, and so if we're able to use this money there, we could get that answer, and because we're running out of time for this meeting.
Okay, well then I'd like this on an. I'm not willing to vote on this until I have more clarity, because you know, if this money that we're rolling back in gets spent, has to be spent by the 31st of March, then April isn't going to do us any good.
I just heard Janae, correct me if I'm wrong, that we have, if you put it in that community fund, that we have 7 years.
Correct. And Lisa just handed me our piece of paper. So we actually have $86,000 right now in for sidewalks. And then for 2021, we're going to be putting in 25. And we have 7 years to spend that. So
Right.
we do have quite a bit of money in there.
So Janae, it sounds like the council's desire is to have this put in the community fund for sidewalks or something like that in the future. And so that's what I'm seeing council members nodding their heads. I've heard a couple of them speak to that at this point. And so it sounds to me like the direction the council can give following that public hearing is to put it in that community fund grant. Merrill?
Mayor, I just gonna say that we're roughly about, with Davis-Bacon, probably $26,000 to $27,000 for a 5-foot sidewalk and curb and gutter for 300 feet. So that's a city block in the Old Town site.
And say the total number again for me, please.
You're probably, if you were redoing completely from the 300 feet in one side of the block, one side, you're probably $26,000 to $27,000 for curb, the patchback, and a 5-foot sidewalk.
Right. So basically the 25 grand that is in the budget right now would do one block. And I would like to see, me personally, I'd like to see us bump up the priority and the money we allocate to those kinds of projects.
So it sounds to me like Janae's told us what we need to do on that when you make the motion. If you wanna do something. Is that right, Janae?
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janae. Okay, agenda item 9, public hearing proposed CDBG program year 2021 annual action plan. Questions for Janae? Okay. We'll move to agenda item 10 is a request for public hearing, the Ridges at Trail Creek final plat. Questions? Okay, agenda item 11, final plat, Crestview Estates Division 3.
Sorry, I did have a question on that one. I was slow to raise my hand.
Okay,
Back to the one. Is that the one where staff was recommending that the person requesting it would pay the costs? Yeah, I just found it.
yeah,
Pay the costs associated. So it's the publication cost and the cost for the notices. Did we build something in to our fee schedule to cover staff time on that as well? And if we didn't, is that something that we could include as part of this, or does it have to be outlined in the fee schedule?
I don't think that we can include it if it is not in the pay schedule that we, or the schedule that we approved when we approved the budget. So when it comes to staff time to do that, but everything else you're correct on.
Okay, that's what I wondered. So I guess maybe a thought is we should look at that for future years.
In next year's agenda. Yeah.
Can we, do we have somebody taking notes so that we remember as we go into budgeting?
Yes, if you remember right, we gave them direction last year because we were back and forth on what that number should be. We gave them direction last year to figure that and bring it forward to next year. So they've got that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, any other questions, Claudia?
I do. So, and I don't know if this is for Carl or for Merrill, actually. I don't really know. So I read the paperwork that these citizens submitted regarding the stub out and I also read that it's already been torn up. I'm just trying to understand how something is already torn up when it hasn't even come in front of us we're approving it now, right?
Merrill?
Real quick, I'll try to answer it, but then we can answer it out there too if we need to. But this, back in when the Holy Spirit Catholic Church put this in, they wanted an access to that point per our ordinance. We can have it on any of the sides around there. They did put it in, then it never was platted and completed. So the city never accepted this as a subdivision. We approved it, but it expired and was never accepted with any of the other utilities and some stuff missing. From that point, it was sold to McCormick Ranch. They've chose not to use that, but use a different area to access the neighbor's property, which is acceptable by ordinance. And they've taken that out. So the city doesn't really have a say in that as long as they're meeting the ordinance.
Okay, and that's what that's where my head was. It's like if they own it, they own it. So,
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Meryl.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We did the 11 final plat Crestview Estates Division 3. So we'll jump to 12, MOU Sagebrush Step Land Trust. Questions?
I had a question on 11.
Oh, we're back to 11 again. Heidi, you got to hustle.
Did we ever get that resolved, or was there any further conversation with the applicant?
Yes, with Mr. Satterfield, we, as the city, Carl, Matt, myself, Richard, we met with Ryan and RMES the next day. We discussed it. We've changed the notes a little bit in the file that you've seen in the memo a little bit. I've talked with Ryan. I believe we're all square and understanding. He had a little bit of reservation, but at the same time, understood where we were coming from and what the ordinance was saying at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Meryl. 12, MOU Sagebrush Step Land Trust. Rick.
One thing I didn't see, I was involved in some early discussions about finding a fiduciary agent for the River Vision. And most of the companies that we talked to, organizations we talked to, wanted to retain a percentage of the funds raised. I see nothing like that in this agreement. I'm wondering if that is going to be a part of this agreement or if there's anything else that should be included in the agreement.
Oh, good question. We don't have that in there. Since we are not raising the money, they are raising the money. We didn't talk about it because they, I think, so they are doing all the fundraising. So the burden is just solely on them. Whereas before, Valley Pride and the city were going to do the fundraising and have a fiduciary agent hold the money. But in this case, the land trust would actually be raising the money for it and then using that minus their overhead to put towards the project. So became less important because they're doing the work of actually raising the money.
You know how much they'll be retaining, Hannah?
I don't off the top of my head. No, I can certainly find that out, or what their normal amount is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, 13, piggyback bid sanitation department. Questions? 14, grant request IDPR Recreation Trails Program grant application, Parks and Recreation. Okay, 15 has been pulled from the agenda. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that at the beginning. So we'll jump to 16, council decision regarding ordinance number 3061, face coverings. we will just go to that and you'll have a discussion and we'll go from there. And then 17 is the State of the City address. Then 18 is items from the audience, and then we'll adjourn. Okay, any questions?
Yes.
Oh, Chris.
Yeah, looks like it's gonna have to be at the end of the regular meeting, but I just, not for discussion tonight, but I just want to bring up revisiting with this council, revisiting the clean energy ordinance, just to make sure that we newbies are clear on what the intent was. And because what I'm hearing through the grapevine is that the community grapevine is that the task force is beginning to be populated. And I would really like to have a conversation about what constituents need to be represented, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know, do you want me to, bringing it up now, is that good enough? I'd like it on an agenda in the next 30 days, or do you want me to bring it up at the end of the regular meeting?
No, we've got that. It's going to be on a study session anyway. I don't remember if it's next month. I can't remember when that is, but it's going to be, if it's not this next one, it's the month after that it will be on the study session.
Yeah.
Mayor,
because,
that'll be next week.
Okay,
Oh,
it's next
great.
week.
All right, great. And
Well,
so Jeff, we won't have made any final decisions about who's on the task force and so forth and so on until before it comes to council.
Well, in that meeting, they'll discuss what they've done here, and then the committee as well. And if so, there's some concerns on if there needs to be somebody else on the council, the committee or the council will have an opportunity to say something there. Rick?
As long as we're talking about future agenda items, I'd like an update on the Monarch. I think this thing has drug on long enough. Neighbors down there are sick and tired of a broken down building in historic Old Town.
See, we didn't have that on our, I think, I would have to
Yeah, about that.
I would have to look. There was in the motion, I think it stated a time when they were supposed to come back to us. And so we'll dig that up and we'll see where we are. Okay. Sounds good. Monarch building. I don't remember what it seems like they gave them until May, June, April, May, June to come back and report what has been done. So we'll find out. We can find that out.
You need to adjourn this one.
Oh, I need to adjourn this meeting. So we are adjourned. our clerk back, and so we're in good shape. We'll go ahead. As soon as I get the thumb up, okay. Good evening, and thank you for joining us at our city council meeting tonight. We'll go ahead and get started. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Adamson,
Here.
Bray,
Here.
Cheatham,
Here.
Thurman,
Here.
Ortega,
Here.
Stevenson, or Stevens. My apologies.
You're muted, Chris. Chris, you're muted, but she is here.
Sorry, I'm here.
Material claims. Council may wish to consider payroll and material claims for the month of December 2020. And once again, council, if you have any questions, please email those to us so we can get the answers to you. B, Community Development Block Grant CDBG Advisory Committee appointment. Council may wish to confirm the mayor's appointment of Shireen Answorth to serve as a member of the CDBG Advisory Committee, filling a long-time vacancy. Shireen's term will begin January 8, 2021 and will expire January 1, 2024. C, Human Relations Advisory Board Advisory Committee appointment. Council may wish to confirm the mayor's appointment of Bhavesh Patel to serve as a member of the Human Relations Advisory Committee, replacing Nancy Goodman, whose term expired. Ms. Patel's term will begin January 8, 2021 and expire January 8, 2025. D, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board appointment or reappointment. Council may wish to confirm the mayor's reappointment of David Dorn to continue his service on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. David's term will begin January 9, 2021 and will expire January 9, 2023. Agenda item E, we will consider at the end of this agenda item here. So agenda item F, Sister City Committee appointment. Council may wish to confirm the mayor's appointment of Dana Kettner to serve as a member of the Sister Cities Committee, replacing Johnny Kettner, whose term expired. Dana's term will begin January 8, 2021 and expire January 8, 2025. G, Sister City Committee reappointment. Council may wish to confirm the mayor's reappointment of Kelly Mohan, how do I say that? Mohan, to continue service on the Sister Cities Committee. Kelly's term will begin January 6, 2021 and expire January 6, 2025. H, 2020 Annual Report and Street Financial Report. Council may wish to approve the 2020 Road and Street Financial Report. The report accounts for the city's use of highway user dollars during the past fiscal year to the Idaho State Controller as required by law. I, Council Decision, Western Skies Division. 1, Council may wish to adopt this decision approving a final plat for Western Skies Division 1 to subdivide approximately 8.74 acres into 21 residential lots. The proposed subdivision is located east of Dullstone Drive and north of East Point Drive. Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of agenda item number 3, the consent agenda, with the exception of item number E.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Linda. We have a motion by Cheatham and a second by Lurick. I have a hand being waved by Stevens.
Yes, I have a couple of questions about item C, and so I would like that pulled from the consent agenda as well, please.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Councilmember Cheatham, would you like to?
Let me
Would you
restate
take a-
my motion. I move for approval of agenda item number 3, the consent agenda, with the exceptions of items C and E.
Thank you. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Cheatham and a second by Stevens now. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Adamson,
Yes.
Cheatham.
Yeah, it
Sorry.
would,
Cheatham,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Stevens. I'm all out of order. Apologize.
that's okay.
That's okay. It's my night, obviously. Yes, fine, sure.
Bray
Yes.
and Ortega.
Yes.
Did we miss somebody?
Out of order, but
I think you got all of them. Okay, perfect. Okay,
sorry.
then let's back up here to agenda item C, Human Relations Advisory Committee appointment. Council may wish to confirm the mayor's appointment of Behavish Patel to serve as a member of the Human Relations Advisory Committee, replacing Nancy Goodman, whose term expired. Ms. Patel's term will begin January 8, 2021 and expire January 8, 2025.
Yes.
Councilwoman Stevens, you have a question.
I have a question. Yes, I just need a quick clarification. Am I correct that we have two members of the Human Relations Committee currently that are part of the same extended family, being Raj and I want to say Muhammad? Are they not related?
No.
I'm confident they are not related, but that is something we do not ask.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just concerned about having too many members of one extended family on an advisory committee that is intended to represent the entire community.
Sure, understandable. But yeah, they are not, I am confident they're not of the same family.
They're from different countries.
Okay, all right, great. Because, you hear all kinds of information that is correct or not. And then is this current appointment related to anybody else on the committee?
There again, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't ask the question whether or not they're related or not. And so I can tell you I don't believe so, but I can't guarantee that they aren't. But I'm pretty confident that they're not. Not something that we ask.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yep. Council, how would you like to proceed? Council President Adamson.
I move to approve the appointment I guess it's not in the consent agenda anymore, or is it still item C?
Item C.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by President Adamson and a second by Cheatham. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Adamson,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Bray,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
and Ortega.
Yes.
You want Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now we will move to agenda item E, Pocatello Development Authority. Let me get back to E. Authority appointment. Council may wish to confirm the mayor's appointment of Jim Johnston to serve as a member of the Pocatello Development Authority, replacing Chad Carr, who resigned. Mr. Johnston's term will begin January 8, 2021 and expire May 1, 2024. Roger.
This is a hard one for me because I appreciate Jim and respect him, but at the same time, I wonder what we're doing by just going to former council members and putting them on. That's kind of an unusual precedent for us, especially when there are some undercurrents in the community about how this person may benefit from some of these positions by getting information and things like that. I just, people are tired of realtors continuing to dominate on a lot of these boards and these actions.
Okay, Heidi? Heidi?
Yeah, when I got on the council, it was to replace Craig Cooper, and he immediately went to serve on the Sister Cities Committee. So we've definitely had former council members that have participated in advisory committees and still do to this day. And honestly, I can't think of a better person to serve on the PDA because Jim Johnston has been at those meetings and is aware of the history, and so he can step right in and be a real asset to that group.
But he's also a person that wasn't, how I put this delicately, he has been instrumental in not just supporting Pocatello, but also Chubbuck, and would his interest be confined to just Pocatello? There's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm hearing from people there. And I thought I would only be doing my due diligence to bring that up tonight so that the council would be fully aware of what is going on in the undercurrent in our community.
So I've got Chris and then Claudia. So let's go Chris, then Claudia, and then Rick.
So I think it was last week, I met for a couple of hours with Mia Kate, the new CEO at Bannock Development. And when I arrived, I mean, which was not a problem for me, you know, no, Jim was there and asked if he could sit in, which of course I had no problem with. And so he did sit in with us. And so, but I'm a little confused now because he appears to be devoting a great deal of time, volunteer or otherwise, to the inner workings of Bannock Development. And now, you know, is proposed to be appointed to PDA. One of the most interesting parts of that conversation was Mia Kate brought up the observation that she believed economic development in this location in Bannock County and Pocatello would really, she was quite adamant about needing new blood, new vision, new participants. And although Jim was not he wasn't speaking during the meeting, he was nodding his head at that point and appeared to me to be in complete agreement with what she was saying. And so based on the fact that presumably she's speaking for the perspective of her board, and Jim seemed to be in agreement with what she was saying, I feel inclined to say, gosh, if that's the advice of our new Bannock County Development CEO, let's follow it and let's go out, spend a little time shaking the bushes and see if we can find some new blood. And that's not to diminish any of the many contributions that Jim has made to this community over the many years that he's been a public servant and just a community volunteer and contributor.
Okay, thank you. Claudia.
I'm gonna echo what Roger has heard, because I've had people talked to me about the appearance of impropriety. They're confused because Jim spoke on behalf of Bannock Development. Now he wants to jump over to PDA. It's the appearance. I'm not saying that Jim would do anything inappropriate, but the appearance of impropriety is a big issue in this community. And if we want to build trust with the people of the community, I think we need to, like Chris said, shake the bushes and find somebody who doesn't potentially stand to profit from the, decisions or information or et cetera. And I think that's important.
Okay, Rick?
I can't imagine a better representative of our community than Jim Johnston. He's been one of the biggest cheerleaders I've seen in the 40 years I've lived here. Yes, he served on this council. He served on PDA when he was a member of the council. He was the one that Bannock Development selected to act as the interim CEO while they were trying to find a new director. He probably knows more about the inner workings of this community than anyone else will find to fill this role. And I think it's an important role that needs to have that kind of experience. Jim's been a huge asset for this community and continues to be a huge asset. And I can't think of a better appointment to that committee.
Okay. Claudia?
Jim is definitely an asset to this community, but given the latest article in the Journal, I don't believe that he's the best fit for economic development in our community at this point, because he's not looking at the real reasons why economic development is hampered in this town. So I would prefer if we had somebody on there who, number one, didn't have a conflict of interest, and number two, was willing to look realistically at what the issues are in this town, keeping the economic development away.
Okay, Heidi?
The question is not whether he should be an economic development CEO, but it's whether he could be a member of the PDA, which is Pocatello's urban renewal agency. So that's it administers urban renewal and TIFs, not economic development.
And that's essential, but that's still economic development. You can call it something else, but it's still economic development. And TIFs more so.
Let me tell you what we did and I did with this, because this came available in the time that Chris and Claudia were excited about being able to go out and shake the bushes and get new people involved. And then this came opened, unsolicited. Jim applied. 2 weeks went by, nobody else had applied. So I opened it back up for 2 more weeks so that you would have another 2 weeks to be able to recruit somebody to be able to come in and do this. We did not receive any more applications, and so we moved forward with it. So we had a month to find somebody to do it, and Jim had applied for it. And I agree with Heidi and Rick that there couldn't be a better asset and a better cheerleader for our community. And I don't see a conflict of interest personally on this one, but that, just so you know where that came from and how this all happened. So we got Chris, then we got Claudia, then we have Linda.
So I just had a conversation with Ann this afternoon because I take your request of us, Brian, that we go out and shake the bushes. I mean, you said that one of the difficulties is there aren't a lot of applicants during one of our meetings, and requested that maybe council, or suggested that maybe council could play a more active role. And I've been trying to do that, and I've been working on the Human Relations Committee because I'm familiar with that one and I kind of know more what's happening. But I talked to Ann about the fact that for me, I need to be a little organized. And so I asked her for a copy of her tracking sheet so that I could know, okay, looks like, a position is going to open up on Committee X in 3 months, okay, or 2 months. That gives me some time I don't have to just quickly think out of my back pocket. And and explained to me how the system works and that there isn't just a sheet like that she can send me, but we talked about a process that would make it, would give council more time, and we wouldn't have to be kind of functioning off the cuff as much as we do now. So, which is great, and I really, really appreciated her willingness to help figure out how I could get what for me, and I think for probably other people on the council would be helpful. But that really doesn't. So that kind of speaks to your point, that it wasn't. I mean, it was over the holidays. I know it was October 29 was when it came out. It's, we were in the middle of mask discussions. I mean, I need, so. I personally would really like some more time to see if we can't explore this a little more thoroughly.
Okay, Claudia?
Well, I agree with that. I feel like I need a heads up so that I can actually make contact with people. I think about who would be appropriate and make contact and try to get other people interested. So, but that aside, I don't understand how Jim is not going to have a conflict of interest. I just don't understand how any of you can tell me that there's no conflict of interest. And I think that we need to select someone who won't have a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Linda?
Sorry, I was muted. I think, and I can't remember whether it was Heidi or Rick, but somebody made the point that the PDA and what they're tasked with is very different than Bannock Development Corporation. And I think that's an important point. I think PDA is not economic development. It's not they play a part in supporting that, but they are not going out doing economic development. So to me, those are two very different things. So I don't think we're, putting Jim on a, how to put this. I don't think we're choosing him to do economic development. I think we're choosing him for a different role. I also think that he is very qualified for that role and has a lot to offer and bring to the table to it. I don't see that is a conflict of interest, and I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused because PDA was intimately involved in the development of Northgate, which obviously is a TIF, and yet Northgate was touted it's as economic development, having an IT park, bringing jobs, and so the overlap between PDA's activities and at least some economic development projects seems to be significant.
Okay, Claudia and then Rick.
So ultimately, I feel that it is our jobs to listen to the people that we represent. And if, like Roger says, there's an undercurrent in the community, then we have to listen to that. Whatever our personal feelings are aside. Nobody's questioning Jim's qualifications or his capabilities at all. But I'm just saying people are not really happy with a realtor developer in this position.
Okay. I've got Rick and then Heidi. And then Roger.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number E under the consent agenda, the Pocatello Development Authority appointment of Jim Johnston.
I will second that. I have not had a single person reach out to me, and we have not received any email correspondence or written correspondence from any concerned members in the community indicating that they have an issue with it.
Okay,
I
so
would-
I have a
Before we
motion.
vote,
I have a motion and a second on the floor right now. Roger has something to say, so Roger.
before we vote, when we were doing the TIF district for Northgate, there were many, many people who could not follow the process of recusing, unrecusing because of perceived conflicts of interest. And so to say that there are none, that does not mirror his record in his role with our development authority as a council member. And so I really think that we have to listen to what people are saying as well, because perception is a great part of our development authority. It is called the Pocatello Development Authority. It's not called the Pocatello TIF District Manifestation Group. It does loans to businesses. It works with businesses to help them be secure. There is a huge part of this, unless the role has changed since I was on it. It was very much an economic development group.
Okay, so thank you. We have a motion by Cheatham and a second by Adamson. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Cheatham,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Bray,
No.
Lurick,
Yes.
Ortega,
No, no.
Stevens,
With all due respect to Jim, no.
Okay, so me, Black. So, yeah, just give me a call. Jim has been an asset and has continued to be an asset. I think that he's more than proven himself to us, and so I'm going to be a yes. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 4 is a communication and proclamations. We have no proclamations, and so we'll move to agenda item 5 is a calendar review. Council may wish to take this opportunity to inform other council members of upcoming meetings and events that should be called to their attention. So on January 14 at 9 a.m. will be a city council work session. January 21 will be a city council liaison work session. Clarification meeting has been canceled. January 21 at 2 p.m. will be a city council special meeting. January 21 at 5:30 p.m. will be a council clarification meeting. January 21 at 6:30 p.m. will be a regular city council meeting. Other events, Christmas tree collection sites will be available through January 8th. Boxes are located at City Hall, Rainy Park on South Arthur, and Sister City Park entrance on Pocatello Creek Road for Christmas tree disposal. Trees will be chipped and used in landscaping projects. Be sure to remove all strings and wires and other objects to avoid damaging the city's wood chipping equipment. City offices will be closed January 18 for Martin Luther King Day. However, garbage and recycle pickups will be on schedule. Reminder, face coverings are required when individuals are in public places within the city of Pocatello. The reminder to please keep sidewalks clear of snow and ice. When clearing sidewalks and driveways of snow, please do not place the snow in the streets. It becomes a driving hazard.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
while we're on the subject of calendar review, I would like to take this opportunity to wish Councilmember Ortega a happy upcoming birthday. Hope you have a great birthday this weekend.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you very much.
Happy birthday. We can try to run from it, but we can't hide. She's going to catch it. Oh, dear. All righty. We'll move to agenda item 6 is a public hearing. Planned unit development ridges at Trail Creek Townhouses. This time has been set aside for council to hear comments from the public regarding a request by Brian Ball of McCormick Ranch LLC in court, represented by Rocky Mountain Engineering and Surveying, for a planned unit development PUD to develop approximately 15.23 acres into 164 residential townhomes. The proposed PUD is located west of North Foothill Boulevard and north of North Gathy Road extension. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the proposed change following a public hearing on December 9, 2019. I declare the public hearing open. Council, I need to ask before we get going, has there been any ex parte communication? I'm seeing heads nodding no, so we'll go ahead and turn the time over to, who's here? Is Brian here? There you are, Brian Ball.
Yes, I'm here.
Brian, you'll have about 10 minutes to go through this if you need all of that time, and then we'll have staff do something after that, and we'll give you at the end a chance to rebut if there's anything that needs to be done.
Okay, I appreciate that. But we have Brady from Rocky Mountain Engineering representing us today, as well as Patrick Davis. So they will each take a little bit of time. Brady, are you on so you can just give an overview?
Yes. Can
okay.
You guys hear me okay?
Okay, now I can see.
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Brady.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Brady Smith with Rocky Mountain Engineering here tonight representing the applicant on this project. As stated in the description, we're here tonight looking for your approval for a 164 unit planned unit development up on the west bench at the old former Holy Spirit site. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. We've done a lot of work over the last several months with the city staff, planning staff more specifically, to try to work through some of these concerns that have came about in the process. But in general, we're trying to lay the groundwork for this project that we anticipate to go in, 2 to 3 phases. I think right now we're somewhere around 3 phases. And if we can get past this initial step of the PUD in general, then we will follow that up with a preliminary plat for phase 1, which has, the main road coming into the development with a round or a little turnaround radius and some amenity space and things of that nature. We believe that we meet the requirements within the zoning that's provided by city code. We do, as the staff report mentions, have asked for a couple of waivers to the ordinances. Those being the first being that we would like to provide around our buildings an individual 2-foot easement that would allow the HOA to maintain right up to the building structure, because the developers would like to see each unit be sold individually as its own lot. And so that is a little bit different than what you might normally see. But the way that this is intended to be laid out in kind of its open state is much more, conducive to their vision. And so doing that, there was some concern about eaves and overhangs and things like that protruding out into space that might be considered not accessible. And so this easement that would then be showing up on a forthcoming preliminary plat would take care of that and allow us to let the HOA manage landscaping, snow removal, anything that they need to right up to the buildings, because this is really intended to target, a market where people can just go into their house and live without having to really worry about anything else. They'll have amenities and, a clubhouse where they can do some other things, but in terms of maintenance and other things, that will all be taken care of by the HOA. The other requirement that we've been asked, or that we are asking for, is that because of the nature of the lots that I just described, we don't have a traditional, quasi setback, so to speak. So we don't really have front facing roads that will be dedicated to right of way. whereas we actually have driveway space, parking space. We have our main entrance that comes into the project, and that will be dedicated to the city. And we're more than willing to have and make sure that our buildings, set back appropriately that way. And we want to make sure that our buildings are set back appropriately from the outer boundary of the entire development. But we're just asking that internally that we can kind of maintain that open nature that we have a vision for, and ask for that waiver to the setback requirement as it pertains to each unit inside of that kind of master plan layout. Beyond that, we have made sure that we've notified all of the appropriate neighbors. There has been some feedback from those neighbors on different conditions that have came from the staff report, most specifically to fire access. And I know that's going to be a hot topic probably in the public hearing portion of this as people get up and talk. So I wanted to kind of give you our position on that right now, and then maybe that'll help shed some light on things that come up on the testimony. But in the early stages, just to give you a quick background, we had an intention to try to get a secondary access that was considered. The problem that we had at that time was that currently there's no land. The connectivity that wouldn't be needed to provide that secondary access is not under one ownership of our client. It's owned by other neighbors, and so to secure that was still a work in progress, and it's still an ongoing work in progress, which you'll hear about later. On this item and maybe even the item 10 that's coming up. But as we got talking about it, and as the condition states, we talked with the fire department, and there is an option to sprinkle these buildings, which was not initially the plan. That has since changed, and we are willing to sprinkle those buildings to meet that requirement. So if you pay specific attention to, I believe it's item, let me find it here, number 9 on the conditions, that are in your staff report, it talks about our options, in an and/or situation. And we're just wanting to make sure that you are aware as a city council that we have elected at this time, to sprinkle those buildings. Now, with that being said, in the last couple of weeks, there has been some movement with some land swaps that still is underway. And so I feel it's appropriate to make sure that that's mentioned. And, my client's attorney can also weigh in on this if necessary, but there has been some movement that way. And we, as a company, have actually been, authorized to work on some legal descriptions and some other mapping to actually get some of this land that was previously unavailable to us for this secondary access, working to get that, swapped around to where a secondary access is much more feasible for us to pull off. So I did want to make that statement on the record because I feel like it's been kind of put out there that there hasn't been a lot of work with the neighbors, and that's just not true. So we want to make sure that that everyone's aware that we are making efforts. We're trying as best as we can to secure these access points, but I think it's fair to say that, as it states in general development land, the roads don't build themselves. And so development drives that. And, our developers have shown with the extensions of a phase now, actually 2 phases within the Trail Creek subdivision since they've taken over, they've invested a large amount of resources to try to get this stuff going on the West Bench. We realize that it's a very important thing for the city to have a secondary access, and they're working the best they can to make that happen. But things do take time, and phases have to go in, and things have to pay for the roads that they're accessing. So anyway, with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, but we do feel like even with the amount of the waivers that we're asking for, we feel like that's a reasonable request, and we're okay with the staff's recommendations in the staff report for the conditions that are before us. And we're willing to, work with the staff and the other agencies that have made comment, and even the neighbors, as we need to try to make this all come together. And with that, I'll, turn it back to you guys.
Thank you. We have a minute and a half. Chris.
Yeah,
Hold on just a minute, Chris. Brian, I'll turn the time to you. Chris can ask her question when your time is done. Sorry.
No, we're good. We can save everything until rebuttal if there's any questions there, if that's okay, Mayor.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Then we'll go ahead and call Chris. Go ahead and ask your question.
yeah. So, do we have anybody from the fire department with us this evening? I'm not seeing anybody that I recognize.
I don't believe so, no.
So, can you just help me understand the purpose of, and for the public, the purpose of a secondary access is what?
Merrill?
I can do that. I've worked with the fire department, with Dean and with Andy, as well as Carl and Matt has too. So the secondary access is, there's different types. So the first one is, a temporary type situation or strictly fire department access for emergencies as we're phasing along in some of these developments and so forth. We've seen that on the other side of the gully as the Trail Creek developments have progressed. And then in that ordinance, there was, after 114 units have been constructed, then a permanent roadway would be, secondary access would be available. Now, with this PUD, it is very similar. 30 units or more, there needs to be conditions placed, whether that be a secondary access that fire or emergencies can move out of the development in the wildlife interface areas or areas like that. Or within the fire code too, that they can sprinkle these units, and then with that they can go a lot longer before the secondary access is gone by, as Brady with RMES has presented too. So the twofold too is we also look, besides with fire, after so long and so many, you want secondary access ingress. That's what is going to sell a community also. And that's where the developers are working with other landowner, as it was pointed out, progressing, that I've understood, that we can have a good traffic and interconnectivity and so forth. The developers here has provided a $12,500 worth of a traffic study for this whole area, which we've reviewed and looked over, and that also shows that eventually that connections will be made and are needed. So as again, just to restate, to answer your question on the fire, is that the tag is or trigger point is the 30 units or more, then something has to happen, and that could either sprinkled or the access, and that's where we are and have negotiated. We did have in our we did meet with Andy, and I was trying to, in attachment B, I was trying to get down through there to where it was, but we did provide a letter at that time too of what needs to transpire, and the workings that we've worked with the developers as the fire and public works.
So if at unit 31, if there is no secondary access, basically development just goes on hold until
they've got to make a decision at the forefront. For that, if they're going to sprinkle, as they've talked about and have committed to sprinkling from day one, they start sprinkling if they know that might delay a little longer. Now, I don't know the inner workings. That would be for Brian or Rod or RMES to answer. But that is our understanding of the city, that they're going to sprinkle these units up front. and move that through. And then once the secondary access is in, they don't have to sprinkle anymore. Or if they know that they can get there, but exactly if they are moving forward and they get to 30, then stuff stops until something else is worked out, if sprinkling hasn't been done at the forefront.
So how does not having a secondary, because sprinklers deal with the fire, but they
Yeah.
don't deal with evac, and with only one access, how is the fire department going to get in and the people get out in an acceptable manner?
And that's a very good question. Even with the Holy Spirit Catholic Church community, at the same thing with the rules there. They had the two axes of access of ingress and egress from the actual site to the roadway. At that point, we can move it so there's no parking on one side. We've made roads and some other developments and concessions that the roadways are wider and so forth, that they can make sure that vehicles can go in, and police and stuff can evacuate out if there is some other form other than fires and stuff. They could also answer more. We have been talking about the temporary access and that. I don't know where their plans are with that there's going to be gravel to a certain point and then paved and roadway and that. So that would be part of that rebuttal that maybe the developers could speak to.
Okay. And then I know one solution sometimes, because I've talked with the fire department about it up here in Johnny Creek, is that you have, I've forgotten, I don't think this is the right technical term, but it's essentially a shelter in place. So out of harm's way, you essentially have a massive parking lot, and you evacuate residents to that safe location, and then you have directed egress, rather than everybody trying to haul, their trailer homes and their boats and everything out while the fire department and emergency services are trying to get in. Is there any opportunity or any capacity within this development to have some kind of a shelter in place situation? Because even with one lane open, I mean, I know when the Charlotte fire happened, it was a mess with two lanes open, trying to follow the evacuation orders.
Yeah, that would be a question that you'd have to ask with the developers within the development themselves for that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Am I okay to maybe help answer a couple of those questions that Councilman Stevens had?
you can go ahead. I've lost control of this meeting anyway right now, so go ahead, Barry.
So one of the restrictions, or I wouldn't say restrictions, but one of the conditions that I think that is already in the current staff proposal on their conditions, is that we have and enforce a no parking requirement along all of our private drives, not only to help keep the garages from being blocked, but also to keep those lanes open for emergency services. One of the things, in answer to your question about the units, we knew right out the gate that our first phase was going to be above the 30 limit threshold, and so we chose to make the determination of where we were at that point and go with the sprinklers. One of the advantages, I think, that this project, even though it is dense, we're not trying to pull any wool over anybody's eyes on that, but we do have a pretty neat feature in the middle of this development that will actually be built out in this first phase. That is a nice circular route that is on the main drive, and so we think that between the combination of the restricted parking on the access points in between the units, and the hopes that that will stay clear, that feeds out to the main drive, which also has a nice circulation pattern to get in and around for an emergency vehicle. In terms of a shelter in place of like an evacuation, there is going to be a clubhouse kind of at the entrance point that you've probably seen on the mapping. I don't know, that's a good question. I don't know that that's really been looked at in that regard, but that may be kind of by default a good place as any to maybe meet if that were the case. And so that is something that I think within the HOA, as they do their meetings and, you know, set up their, you know, plans of attack for how they maintain that property, that's definitely a valid point.
Hey, Chris?
Merrill or maybe Jeff, I don't know. Tom, my understanding is that please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm thinking that part of the access into this development will actually become city street. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. Gaethje Road will become a city street, as well as the future plans that, you know, different changes into the future, depending on how we go with reconfiguration there at Craft and everything too. So, but the actual road leading up through the gate that you've seen or there as you drive by, and that will become the city road.
So are we going to have a problem because we can't, can we enforce no parking
Yes, we can.
there? So that won't be an issue. And then I noticed, Brady, it's probably my school teacher ears, but I heard you say, you know, the no parking HOA requirement essentially, and that hopefully those won't be parked. And that word hopefully caught my attention because I guess, you know, I understand once the developers are out of the picture, it's basically up to the HOA. And if the HOA says nuts to that, then we, you know, then we have a potential, you know, incoming, outgoing problem because the developers' good intentions are not being followed through. What can we do, if anything, on private property to require that would make it necessary for an HOA to honor the good intentions of you developers?
Okay, thank you. I think Brady, keep that in mind and stuff, and when we get to the rebuttal part, if we need to. We've still got quite a bit of this public hearing to get through. We're through stage one, so we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to staff. Carl, for your presentation. Carl, maybe you can answer some of these questions as well.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Carl Anderson, City of Pocatello Planning Department, for the record. As you know, as you're aware, before you have for consideration a plan unit development application for the Ridges at Trail Creek townhouses. This is submitted by Brian Ball of McCormick Ranch, LLC, represented by Rocky Mountain Engineering and Surveying. This property is generally located west of North Foothill Boulevard and north of Gaethje Road extension. This proposed subdivision is zoned residential, commercial, professional, and this PUD will be followed by a preliminary plat at a preliminary and a final plat application at a later date. So that is important to note that this is not the final stage in this process. As the applicants indicated, they will be following this up with a preliminary and final plat. The applicant is proposing to develop the property into 164 zero-lot line townhomes with common space to serve the subject property. This common area will provide for additional parking, open space, stormwater retention, a clubhouse, and a walking path. If the project were not subdivided into separate lots and located on one parcel of land, then the project would meet the minimum lot size requirement outright. The RCP zoning district requires a minimum lot size of 3,630 square feet per townhome dwelling unit. The applicant is proposing to utilize lot size averaging for this development. Past practice for lot size averaging for a PUD indicates that lot size averaging may include the common area of the subject project into the lot size average calculation. As previously stated, the minimum lot size required is 3,630 square feet for a townhome dwelling unit. The total area incorporated in the proposed PUD is 15.23 acres or 663,418 square feet. The applicant is proposing a total of 164 dwellings. Therefore, the total minimum lot size required for the development as a whole is 595,320 square feet. When taking the total lots for the subdivision, including common area, the minimum lot size would be 4,045 square feet. The required number of parking spaces for the development is 328 parking spaces, and the applicant is providing 418 parking spaces in total. The applicant has requested 2 exemptions from municipal code as indicated by Brady of RMES. These requests include a waiver to the requirement that all portions of the buildings be retained on its individual lot, so setbacks, and a request to waive the minimum requirement of the RCP RH zoning district, again, setbacks. Both requests are discussed under the staff analysis contained in 1701-140, section C1, and are addressed by conditions number 4 and 5 listed in the findings of fact attached to the application packet. Additionally, per City of Pocatello Fire Code, when more than 30 units are proposed, secondary access must be provided. As an alternative to constructing secondary access at this phase of the development, the applicant is proposing to fire sprinkle each dwelling unit. This is an approvable alternative to providing the secondary access as verified by a representative of the fire department. All noticing requirements of this application have been met. 4 written public comments were received and provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review, and multiple phone calls were received by staff. Additionally, written comment was received by Idaho Fish and Game on December 4th and provided to the Commission for review and attached to the agenda today. 3 verbal public comments were received at the public hearing on December 9th, 2020, opposed to the application, and an additional written comment was received today and forwarded to the City Council. Following the public hearing held on December 9th, 2020, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-1 to recommend approval of the Ridges Townhome Plan Unit development with the conditions outlined in the findings of fact. Planning and Zoning Commission findings of fact have been submitted and are attached to the packet. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Carl, before we do that, I need to ask the clerk, have we received any correspondence in relation to this in the clerk's office?
Yes, and it's been forwarded to the council.
Okay, so everything that we've received has been forwarded to the council. So council, you have everything in front of you. Any questions for Carl? Okay, thank you. Then we would look for anybody supporting the application. Anybody uncommitted to the application? Any testimony opposed to the application? Okay, thank you. I will go ahead and turn the time over. Brian, I'm assuming you want Brady to speak to this, but for a rebuttal.
For a rebuttal for what, Mayor?
Well, there was a question, Councilmember Stevens, I think, in this. Did you get those questions answered? Okay, so would you remind them what the question was?
Sure, and what I don't think is that it's actually within their control, but I don't know. So my concern is that whether or not from some corner there's a way to hold an HOA or require an HOA to uphold your well-intentioned, safety measures about no parking on the roads, essentially. That people have to use the parking spaces, if I'm understanding that right. But my concern is once those units are sold and it's a community, I mean, it's not your problem anymore, nor should it be. So, how do we ensure that emergency access is maintained over time?
So, Councilmember Stevens, Brian, I might be able to speak to that. As it is a public road, that would fall on the city to maintain that as a public road. The HOA would be the one, if there's an issue with it, as the HOA is meeting and stuff, they could address that and ask people to stop doing that and do whatever mechanism they have if you're violating the rules of the HOA. But when it comes to actual enforcement of no parking on one side of the road or the other, that would fall in the hands of the city to do that.
Okay, but I thought I understood that after a certain point, the road was no longer city. Am I incorrect in that impression?
Carl?
I can speak to
Mr. Mayor, if I may. So some of the plans, as I understand them, working with the applicant's representative, is that some of the access drives, specifically the areas accessing the garages, will become private. Those will be maintained by the homeowners association. Staff has worked to address some of this with conditions number 3 and 6. The parking area shall be dedicated a shared common area, and at no point may any fencing or other obstruction be placed within the parking and access area so as to prevent the fire access and turnaround. Number 6 being that the applicant shall maintain and enforce a no parking requirement along the private drive aisle that may block the private garage access where a 25-foot setback would otherwise be required. So this will actually go into the plan unit development agreement and would be, because of that, would need to be placed in the homeowners association CCNRs. If this became an issue, this is something that we would be able to proceed with code enforcement procedures on, similar with any of the other conditions associated with this land use application.
Because I know, for example, up here in Johnny Creek, there are actually covenants, but if you can actually get a copy of them, I mean, you know, they're an artifact and nobody pays any attention to them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just don't want to, I mean, I'm not comfortable going forward until we know that we can give fire and emergency adequate access, and we can guarantee that essentially in perpetuity.
So I think when it comes to private property, the HOA would be responsible to enforce whatever they needed to there to make that happen. When it comes to public property, then that would be the city. And I believe that they have, the fire department, Merrill, correct me if I'm wrong, has signed off on that portion of it so that they would be good to go and they have access.
That is correct. And I think if I could add one thing, secondary access, we're talking what Carl just pointed was inside on the private side and all that with the covenants and code enforcement. Then there's the secondary access once you come out, if it's the temporary one, while the road is getting built across, to whether it's gravelled and that would be an easement to the city of Pocatello. So within that easement, we can put in there no parking. And with that in there, we can also regulate and control that secondary access until it becomes a road under the easement agreement and so forth. So I hope that helps. I think there's several parts to the different parts of the access, but that part we can maintain and take care of.
Okay, Brian, go ahead and say something, then we'll get back to you, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, just really quick. We have Patrick Davis, and he's drawing up those CCNRs for us. And Chris, maybe he can address this really quickly for you, how we plan on addressing that inside the HOA. And he's on site there at the city.
All right. I have Patrick in the room with us here, so in the council member. So I'll go ahead. Patrick?
Yes. So Councilwoman Stevens, to speak specifically to your concern about parking and whether the HOA can enforce that, it absolutely can. Just to give you an idea of my background, prior to moving to Pocatello, I had an active litigation practice that had at all times between 30 and 40 cases in active litigation, and 100% of them were HOA disputes, right? And so that's why McCormick Ranch, why Brian Ball and Rod Furness came to me and asked me to draft the HOA, the CCNRs and the bylaws and things like that. And so it is absolutely possible, and we will put in enforcement mechanisms for that parking requirement, and we'll be able to ensure that happens.
Okay, Chris, go ahead. Patrick, we might have another question for you.
Yeah, Patrick, I think this is a question for you. I'm familiar a bit with HOAs, and it's my understanding that they basically are run by member boards. Is that correct?
Generally, yes, but essentially the CCNRs are obligations that run with the land, okay? And so...
Oh, all right, okay.
Whatever the mechanism is that you put in place, if you want it to be a board, often, and our CCNRs will be drafted this way so that we retain enforcement rights until 100% of the lots have been sold. And so until all of the lots have been sold, it will be us specifically enforcing those. Thereafter, we will form an HOA under, a 501(c) nonprofit organization to do that, but we'll empower them with the same enforcement power to make sure that happens. And that's an obligation that runs with the land. And so anybody who buys and sells anything will be coming under the same obligations.
No, I understand that, but I've also been aware of situations where HOA boards decide to change, you know, the restrictions within the HOA. And that's what I'm concerned about. Because if the board or the whatever, you know, votes to say, oh no, parking is fine on their private land, I mean.
Right, that's certainly a valid concern, but that really comes down to how you draft your CC&Rs. And
Okay.
So part of drafting the CC&Rs is including how they can be amended and how they can be changed moving forward. Usually you require, you know, unanimity or something like that to make sure that, as you're discussing, so to make sure that arbitrary decisions can't be made that adversely impact the quality of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Council. I declare the public hearing closed. Council, this item is before you. How do you wish to proceed? Council President Adamson.
Mayor, I move that we approve the request with the conditions noted.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Council President Adamson and a second by Cheatham. Wendy, can you please call the roll?
Adamson,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Ortega,
Yes.
and Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you. We will move to agenda item 7. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian and Patrick and Brady. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 7, public hearing zoning ordinance amendments. This time has been set aside for council to hear comments from the public regarding revisions to Pocatello Municipal Code Title 17 zoning ordinance. These revisions were presented to the council at the November 12, 2020 work session and are to clarify and or update sections of the ordinance. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the proposed changes following a public hearing on December 9, 2020. I declare the public hearing open. Let's see, we have Carl. You're muted, Carl.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Carl Anderson again for the record. You have before you a series of proposed amendments to Title 17 zoning regulations. On December 12th, 2020, staff brought the proposed changes to City Council for a work session and received direction to proceed with the changes to Title 17. A public hearing was held on December 9th, 2020 before the Planning and Zoning Commission, after which the Commission recommended approval of the proposed modifications to Title 17. After the initial City Council work session, staff identified 18 local developers, engineers, and architects to review the proposed changes and provide comment. 2 written comments were received and were in regards to points of clarification to the proposed amendments. Since the work session, 1 change has been made to the proposed amendments, which was to remove short-term housing, rental, and associated standards, definitions, and so forth. This was done to allow staff to address to address concerns raised during work session and will be brought to you at a later date. Title 17 was reviewed by the City of Pocatello Legal Department and no substantial concerns were raised. All noticing requirements have been met and no written or verbal comments have been received. A detailed analysis is contained within the staff report, including the proposed amendments. Following the public hearing, the council may wish to adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation and approve the city-initiated text amendment to Title 17 regulations and direct staff to prepare an ordinance containing the proposed changes. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Council, any questions for Carl? Okay, Carl, have we received any comments that we have not been informed of?
No.
And Madam Clerk, have we received any in the clerk's office?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Then we would look for any testimony supporting the application. Any testimony opposed or uncommitted to the application? Any testimony opposed to the application? Okay, Carl, I have no reason for you to rebut nothing, and so I'm going to go ahead and declare the public hearing closed. Council, this item's before you. How do you wish to proceed? Council President Adamson.
Mayor, I move to approve the changes.
Second.
We have a motion by Council President Adamson and a second by Ortega.
So, Mayor, to approve the changes in.
Did you hear that? We need a motion to be to approve the changes and instruct them to instruct staff to prepare an ordinance. Are you okay with that ordinance? That,
Yes, sorry about that.
and Claudia, are you okay with
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yes.
I thought that's what you both meant, but we'll go from there. Thank you very much. So we have a motion by President Adamson and a second by Ortega. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Adamson,
Yes.
Ortega,
Yes.
Bray,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 9. It's a public hearing, proposed CDBG program year 2021 annual action plan. This time has been set aside for council to receive public comment on a proposed community development block grant CDBG program year 2021 action plan. The CDBG advisory committee recently completed its annual grant application process, including with the recommendation of approval at their meeting on November 10
Wrong item.
12, 2020. A 30-day comment period began December 6, 2020 and concludes January 7, 2021. Following a public hearing, council may wish to endorse or modify the advisory committee's recommendation and authorize submission, including any public comment of the program year 2021 action plan to the Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD. The council may also wish to authorize the mayor's signature on all requisite contract documents subject to legal department review with HUD and any subsequent subcontractors.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you were reading part of section, agenda item 9 at the same time as 8.
I'm sorry, I read all of 9 and none of 8. I got lost here. So we'll go ahead and move to agenda item 8, not 9. Public hearing program year 2020 CDBG action plan amendments. This time has been set aside for council to receive public comment regarding a proposed amendment within the program year 2020 Community Development Block Grant CDBG annual action plan. The amendment was reviewed and recommended for approval by the CDBG Advisory Committee at their meeting on November 10, 2020. A 30-day comment period began December 6, 2020 and concludes January 7, 2021. Following the public hearing, the council may wish to approve the amendment and authorize submission, including any public comments, to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I declare the public hearing open. And I expect my attorney to tell me when I'm doing that the next time. Janae.
Where are we? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am Janae Mitchell, CDBG Program Coordinator here at the City of Pocatello. As described by the Mayor, this is an oral comment opportunity to amend the Program Year 2020 Action Plan. This amendment allows us to reuse the $70,000 that was not used in PY 2020 to available to fund. Moving this to money to available to fund will allow agencies to access the fund anytime throughout the program year. CDBG Advisory Committee has recommended this amendment at their November 12th meeting. Copies of the recommendation have been available at the Marshall Public Library, the Housing Authority, City Hall, as well as the website. There was a 30-day comment period that started December 6th and ends tonight with no comments. Following tonight's hearing, City Council may wish to accept the committee's recommendation and authorize to amend the submission to HUD, or do with what you will. that completes my presentation right now. And if anybody has any questions, I'd like to answer those.
So any questions? So Janae, has there been any correspondence that we have not seen?
Not as of yet.
Thank
Today
you.
at 5 o'clock was the cutoff.
Madam Clerk, have we sat any in the clerk's office?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Questions for Janae, council? Okay, then I would look for any testimony supporting the application. Any testimony uncommitted to the application? Any testimony opposed to the application? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Council, this item is before you. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Lurick.
I move that we approve the amendment and authorize submission, including any public comments to the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the CDBG Action Plan Program Year 20.
Is this where we were going to include language about where this money, into what fund this money goes and for what purpose it was being earmarked? Or is that somewhere else?
Add to my motion with the stipulation that this money go towards the sidewalk program.
Second.
Is it the sidewalk program or is it the community? Janae, what did you call that? That gives you time to use.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to work my computer. We wanted it put into the available to fund. That way we could pull it out anytime we wanted and not have to come back in front of you guys. If you guys put it on the sidewalks, that's where it will stay until it gets.
Okay. So the motion is for it to be in the sidewalks. Is that a correct statement?
Is that what we want?
That's discussion was made and you're the motion maker. And so
yeah,
that was
I'm just asking if I'm calling it the correct thing. It sounds like Janae's saying put it into something else. Okay, Rick's saying yes.
No, I'm saying, yeah, if you want it available to fund, anybody can come and ask me for it until March 31st. If you guys want it in sidewalks, then it stays there until we use it for sidewalks only.
Yes, then that is what I meant.
Okay, that is your motion.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Lurick and a second by Cheatham. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Lurick,
Yes.
Ortega.
Yes.
It would be Cheatham.
Oh, Cheatham. Right, my fault. Cheatham,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Bray,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Got it.
Perfect. Thank you.
You can read 9 down.
Now I get to do 9 all over again. I apologize for that. I should have just done that public hearing and then done the other one later, but here we go. Agenda item 9, public hearing proposed CDBG Program Year 2021 Annual Action Plan. This time has been set aside for council to receive public comment on the proposed Community Development Block Grant CDBG Program Year 2021 Action Plan. The CDBG Advisory Committee recently completed its annual grant application process, including with the recommendation of approval at their meeting on November 10 and November 12, 2020. A 30-day comment period began December 6, 2020 and concludes January 7, 2021. The following the public hearing, council may wish to endorse or modify the advisory committee's recommendations and authorize submission, including any public comments of the public program year 2021 action plan to the Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD. And let's see, the council may wish to authorize the mayor's signature on all requisite contract documents subject to legal department review with HUD and any sub-recipients or subcontractors. I declare the public hearing open. I think we're on the right agenda item now, Janae.
Yeah, sorry to mess you up today, Mr. Mayor.
That was all me. I did that by myself.
Hey, and they're right there together. So, Mayor and Council, I'm Janae Mitchell again, Program Coordinator here at the City of Pocatello. As described by the Mayor again, this is an oral comment period for our PY21 action plan, which Pocatello is in its 25th year of being an entitlement city. Yay. The action plan was developed assuming the same allocation as last year, which was $449,917. The federal budget has not been passed yet, so we're hoping that's what it's going to be. The CDBG Advisory Committee has recommended a list of conditions that allows adjustments up to 25% of voting us to have to come back in front of you guys all the time. The Advisory Committee and CDBG staff have spent a great deal of time determining that the applicants meet the qualifications from HUD. The memo in your packet outlines the committee's recommendation and is shown in the brown column of the spending summary sent to you guys. CDBG staff made 2 recommended changes as shown in the white column. With these 2 recommended changes, it allows us as staff to meet our timeliness and be in compliance with federal guidelines. We feel this is a well-balanced plan addressing the highest priority needs to our community as identified in the city's 5-year consolidated plan. Copies of the recommendation were also on our website, Marshall Public Library, Life Inc., and the Housing Authority and City Hall. A 30-day comment period started December 6th and ends tonight. No written comments have been seen by us. Following tonight's public hearing, the council may wish to accept or amend the funding recommendations and authorize the plan submission to HUD, as well as authorizing the mayor's signature on all contract documents, subject to legal department review. This concludes my presentation. I will stand for any comments you guys have.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, then I have one for Madam Clerk. Have we received any comments in the clerk's office?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Janae. Then I would look for any testimony supporting the application. Any testimony uncommitted to the application? Any testimony opposed to the application? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Council, this item is before you. How do you wish to proceed? Councilmember Bray.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the proposed CDBG program year annual action plan, including staff additions, and that we endorse or authorize submission of public comments for program year 21 and the action plan to the Housing and Urban Development. And we authorize your signature on all requisite documents, subject to legal department review.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Bray and a second by Ortega. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Bray,
Yes.
Ortega,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Cheatham,
I fail to see how we're improving the public lot and expenditure of dollars by paving parking lots. No.
Bluritt,
Yes.
Stevens,
I have to ask a question. I don't understand the ability to make amendments later because I'm a little concerned about the allocation proportions, kind of like Rick is.
Okay, so Janae, can you explain very quickly the ability to make amendments?
Well, if you guys approve this right now, the only amendments that we would be able to make is if people don't spend the money in the timeliness that we had to right now with the $70,000. But also with approving this how it is right now, that would be $383,803, which leaves us with $66,114. And we also usually get program income about $31,000. So that leaves us with available to fund of a little over $91,000 that can be allocated throughout the year with approving all of these that's on the piece of paper for you. So amendments right now, if you approve all of these, I would only have to come into you for an amendment if my stuff does not get spent.
So with reservations, yes.
We will move to item 10, a request for public hearing, the Ridges at Trail Creek final plat. Linda Popelka and Ralph Hackard have submitted a written request to hold a public hearing prior to the final action by the city council regarding the final plat for the Ridges Trail Creek subdivision. Council? It looks like we have Linda available if you have any questions, but this item's before you, Council.
Are we able to see?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, who is this?
this is Ralph Heckard, and I am one of the two petitions for public hearing regarding the Ridges at Trail Creek. And with respect to that, do we have any opportunity here to speak to our petition, or does it just stand as it is?
It stands in front, it's not a public hearing, and so it stands in front of the city council. For the question, stands in front of the city council, and so it is not a public hearing at this time.
So we're voting on whether or not to allow a public hearing at a later date. Is that correct?
The request is for a public hearing. Let me read that again. A public hearing prior to the final action by the city regarding the final plat for the Ridges Trail Creek subdivision. So the Ridges Trail Creek subdivision will be able to grow and do their thing. The final plat, they're asking before the final plat is done, that they would have a public hearing.
So I move that the request for a public hearing regarding the Ridges at Trail Creek final plat be granted.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, and Claudia, you had your hand up when she started to make that motion. Did you have any?
No, I was just going to make the motion.
Okay.
So I just seconded hers.
Perfect, thank you. So we have a motion by Stevens and a second by Ortega. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Stevens,
Yes.
Ortega,
Yes.
Adamson,
Background noise here, so we can't hear you. Council President Adamson, did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Bray,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Okay, super, thank you. So Linda, there will be a public hearing and you'll be notified when all of that happens, and so
Okay, may I ask a question?
it's been granted. Right now, I'll just have you, I'll refer you to talk with Merrill in the planning, or the engineering department. You can get a call tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item 11 is the final plat Crestview Estates Division 3. Council may wish to consider a request from Satterfield Realty and Development Incorporated, represented by Rocky Mountain Engineering and Surveying, for a final plat application to subdivide approximately 13.48 acres into 23 residential lots. The proposed subdivision is located south of Monson Street and northeast of Mariah Way. Staff finds the proposal compliant with all applicable standards with conditions.
where is that?
Councilmember Cheatham?
Mr. Mayor, I would move for approval of agenda item number 11, the final plat on Crestview Estates Division 3.
Second.
Is that with conditions?
Yes, as presented with all applicable standards and conditions.
Super, and you're good with that? Second, thank you. So we have a motion by Cheatham and a second by Stevens. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Cheatham,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Bray,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Ortega,
Yes.
Super, thank you. Agenda item 12, MOU Sagebrush Step Land Trust. Council may wish to approve memorandum of understanding MOU with the state Sagebrush Step Land Trust for services to develop a strategic plan for land and funding acquisition with willing landowners for implementation of the city's open space and river vision goals. Subject to legal department review, funding in the amount of $50,000 for the execution of the agreement is available within fiscal year 2021 general fund budget.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I
Councilwoman.
move that we approve agenda item number 12, the MOU with Sagebrush Step Land Trust, with all the conditions and legal stuff and everything else that we need to include.
So subject to legal department review.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ortega and a second by Bray. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Ortega,
Yes.
Bray,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Thank you. And we'll move to agenda item 13, piggyback bid sanitation department. Council may wish to consider a piggyback bid on a 2014 City of Pocatello sealed competitive bid for refuge carts with Rare Rig Pacific Company. The sanitation department will purchase carts by the truckload throughout the year as needed. This expenditure will be approved. It has been approved in the sanitation department fiscal year 2021 budget. If approved, council may wish to authorize the mayor's signature on all applicable purchase documents. Councilman Bray.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the piggyback bid for the sanitation department of refuge carts, and that we authorize you, the mayor, to sign all applicable purchase documents.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Bray and a second by Cheatham.
Bray,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Ortega,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 14, grant request IDPR Recreation Trails Program grant application. Parks and Recreation. The Trails Working Group and Portneuf Greenway Foundation request the City Council support for submission of 2 grant application under the IDPR Recreation Trails Program. And if awarded, authorize acceptance of the grants and authorize the mayor to sign, subject to legal department review, documents related to the grants, and upon completion, accept ownership of the trail and bridge. A, Brennan Trail extension to North Main, an extension of the Brennan Trail from the end of the existing trail to the North Main extension. Cost of the project is approximately $40,000 with a required match of 25% or $10,000, which will be funded by the Portneuf Greenway Foundation. B, pedestrian bridge over Portneuf River from Millward Mile Trail to Sacagawea Park. Construction of a pedestrian bridge over the Portneuf River, connecting a new trail with Millward Mile Trail to Sacagawea Park. Cost of the project is approximately $200,000 with a required match of 25% or $50,000, which will be funded by the Portneuf Greenway Foundation. The City of Pocatello would have full ownership of the trail and pedestrian bridge upon completion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question I hadn't thought of until right now. Who's going to do the actual construction of the trail and bridge? Will that be done by the city, by IDPR, by the Greenway Foundation? Who's going to manage? Who's going to do that?
Historically, the grants that we have with the Greenway Foundation and IDPR have been done with the Greenway, finding the contractor and hiring the grant contractor and going that way. Is that correct, Merrill?
I believe through this, because it is the federal money and the grant and we're the participant, the city will work with probably the consultant that the Greenway hires, and we will go through the bidding process. We'll actually have to come back to you as the council to award that, and if the grants are there, and then to award the bid and so forth, just like a project. But that's the way we'll follow that through.
Will this then be bacon wages?
Yes, it probably, well, I'd have to check with the Parks and Rec grants. It may not be, but if it was the federal highway, the others, it might be, but I can't recall if this is Davis-Bacon or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So after this is done and the city has complete ownership, is it Park and Rec's job to maintain the trails and who's going to maintain all that?
John,
go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. John Banks, Parks and Recreation Director. Yeah, that is correct. So the city would assume ownership and Parks and Rec would assume the maintenance of that amenity.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And you're okay with that?
Oh,
John?
It's
doable?
a small price to pay. You know, would have new asphalt, new amenities, and we keep up on it. It's a minimal amount to absorb for the community benefit.
Rick?
Mr. Mayor, I would move for approval of agenda item number 14, the grant request from IDPR Recreation Trails Program grant applications through Parks and Recreation, authorizing your signature on all grants and documents necessary, and upon completion, accept ownership of the trail and bridge upon legal department review.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Cheatham and a second by Stevens. Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Cheatham,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Bray,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Ortega,
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 15, as I mentioned earlier, was pulled from the agenda, so we'll be moved to agenda item 16. Council decision regarding ordinance number 3061, face coverings. This time has been set aside for council to revisit ordinance number 3061, an ordinance establishing standards for face coverings for individuals when they are in public places as approved by the council November 19, 2020, effective November 21, 2020. Council. Councilmember Lurick and then Cheatham.
I just wanted to make one comment to start our discussion or before we vote on this. I mean, regardless of how we vote and how we feel, one of the things that I've been reading a lot or hearing from people a lot in their comments or in conversations is if we vote differently than they wanted us to, that we did not hear them or did not listen to them. And so people on all sides of the issue are saying that their voices have not been heard. And I just want to make very clear that, you know, all of us are just trying to make the best decision that we can and do what we think is best for Pocatello. And if we vote differently than, you know, what you would have wanted or what your position is, it doesn't mean that we didn't hear you. We do listen to all the voices and all the comments that people make, and we take them seriously, but we have to weigh all of those and, like I said, do the best that we can or do what we believe is the best for the city. So Just to be very clear, we do hear everybody's voices. We do listen, and we do take them all the comments seriously. So I just wanted to start us off with that comment.
Thank you. Rick?
Mr. Mayor, I would move for repeal of ordinance number 3061, as we approved recently. There has been a decline in COVID cases. It has occurred not only in mask mandate counties, but also in those without them. And I think we are through the major thrust at this point. The winter months scare that we all were afraid was going to happen has come and gone. And I think it's time to do away with this. As I go around town, I see most people masked. I've been in Fred Meyer several times recently, and I've seen one person each time that was not wearing a mask. And I think people are doing it, and we don't need the mandate.
Yes.
Okay. We have, I'm looking, Councilwoman Ortega, are you prepared to second that, or you just have a comment?
No, I just have a comment.
Okay, I'm looking for a second, and then we'll comment.
Second.
So we have a motion by Cheatham and a second by Adamson. Now let's go to the comments. Ortega, then Stevens.
I want to thank Linda for making the comment that she did to start the discussion, because it is important. Regardless of how we vote, we're angering 50% of the population, it seems like. But I've read all of the comments, and I've looked at all the articles that people have sent. That being said, when our regional medical center sends a request that we continue this mandate and for another 30 days, I'm going to concede to the opinion and the request of the people who are providing the medical care in our region. So I'm going to vote not to repeal.
Thank you. Stevens.
Yeah, I considered two factors when I was thinking about how I'm going to vote tonight. And it occurred to me that we council members vote on decisions at virtually every meeting. We vote on topics and projects around which we have little professional expertise or experience, and we rely on the opinions of people who are much more expert in the topics that we're considering. Sometimes that's city staff, sometimes it's members of the community. And therefore, I'm going to vote and function in line with our normal process, which is when we're voting and making decisions outside our personal areas of expertise, we rely on the recommendations and opinions of people who are experts. The second consideration for me was that we, not the council, but our country, we as a society, make consequential decisions daily across the nation according to a variety of evidence standards, one being preponderance of evidence, another being beyond a reasonable doubt. Neither of these standards require 100% agreement among experts to be considered valid. So therefore, I'm going to use the opinions and recommendations voiced by the preponderance of local medical experts to guide my vote. And I will vote against repeal, and I will vote in support of continuation of the mask mandate.
Okay, Roger?
I've got two dimensions to what I'm going to say. First thing is, we haven't had time to get away from Christmas and New Year's to really know what things are doing. The mask mandate, as we got an email from a physicist who charted what's happening, has, in his estimation, has done a lot of good. And whether it's the mask or the devotion to take on this pandemic strenuously, we can't determine, but there is a definite decline. The other part of that is that decline has started to indicate a trend upwards again. We're up about 66% from our low of just a few days ago in terms of infections. So I'm going to vote for that. The second part of what for the mask. Second part of what I need to say is I appreciate what Linda said. You all got the email where I was accused of being rude and unprofessional and all of that stuff. I want to say I believe I was very professional. I was very skilled at listening, but I was bothered by both the call and the email. At the beginning of the conversation, I listened. I listened to her assumptions about whether we read emails or not. I listened to her assumptions of why wearing masks is unnecessary. I listened to her opinions on how they infringe on people's rights. But I courteously informed the caller that I intended to vote for the mask ordinance to continue tonight, knowing that it's not a cure-all, but it is an ingredient or a tool that is critical in our fighting the spread of COVID in our community. From there, the conversation went south. I was accused of being insensitive, uncaring, hating children, wanting people who were depressed and wearing masks to go ahead and commit suicide. That's not where I was at. My wife happened to be present and overhear my side of the conversation. When I was able to get off the phone, she replied, "Who was that person?" And then she went on to say, you know, I really noticed how you struggled to be able to have any part of a conversation with them. You seem to be being talked to, not talked with. Now, that's all I'm going to say, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. And what I would simply point out is that there are two sides to every story, and that the truth does not reside with just one person.
Rick?
One final comment. I believe in masks. I wear one, I carry one. If I leave the house, I'm wearing a mask, unless I'm driving my car, and then it seems foolish. I believe in masks. I don't believe in city government mandating what people should be doing.
Okay. Thank you. Linda?
I was going to comment on a couple of things. Rick's comment earlier that when you go out to stores like Fred Meyer, that you're seeing people wear masks. And I am too, almost everybody. On my recent trips to a few different stores, I've only seen, I think, one or two people not wearing masks in all of my trips. So I think they are wearing them. However, I noticed that compliance went up after we passed the ordinance. I didn't see that level of compliance before the ordinance. And that leads me to my second comment that I also, this is related to another sort of area, I guess, that a lot of people are addressing in their emails and comments and conversations with us. And that is whether we have the right or the authority to pass an ordinance like this. And I have to say, when we first, way back when, this past summer, started considering an ordinance, the very first thing I did was call our attorney and ask him, do we have the authority to pass this? If we pass an ordinance, is that legally defensible? And he actually quoted to me, he gave me the sections of Idaho code where it does give city councils the authority to do this. And there's a very specific section about preservation of public health. So I did want to make that part clear for the people that are saying that this is not within our purview, that this is not our job, that this is not our responsibility. I have to respectfully disagree with that. I think Idaho code makes it very clear that in the case of some kind of infectious disease or pandemic, that it is local government's responsibility, as well as state government, as well as federal government. There are, all the levels that can act in an emergency situation, but that does include us. So therefore, I think the question of whether, we have the authority to do something like this, or whether we're acting outside of our purview, to me, that is not an issue or a question. I believe that we do have the ability to pass this ordinance, and that it is a legal ordinance. My feeling is that we need to give this more time. I think Roger makes a good point too about the holidays. We're not far enough away from Christmas and New Year's to really know whether, our numbers are going to spike again, or whether they're going to continue to go down. I think we have to give it a little more time and see what happens. I agree with you, Rick. My preference would be that, people would just choose to do this on their own, and that it wouldn't be up to us to tell them to do it. But I think we all saw that wasn't happening before this. So I think it is up to us, and according to Idaho code, the preservation of public health is our responsibility. And therefore, I think, we need to give this more time, and it is up to us to try to protect our community.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortega?
Since we have a motion and a second, can we vote?
Well, what we usually do and allow people to council to express their opinion. And if I don't have any more of those out there, then that's what we're going to do. So I don't see any others. So with that, we have a motion by Cheatham and a second by Adamson to repeal the mask ordinance. With that, Wendy, could you please call the roll?
Cheatham,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Gray,
No.
Lurick,
No.
Ortega,
No.
Stevens,
No.
Okay, that motion fails. Councilmember Bray.
Mr. Mayor, seeing how we have voted down the doing away with masks, I now move that we continue our mask ordinance through our first meeting in February.
Second.
So I have a motion by Bray and a second by Stevens. Any comments? So we've already done that. With that being said, Wendy, a motion by Bray and a second by Stevens. Could you please call the roll?
Gray,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Adamson,
No.
Cheatham,
No.
Lurick,
Yes. Yes.
Ortega.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes. So this item will be on the council agenda in February, on the first meeting of February. Then we'll move to agenda item number 17 is the State of the City address. This time has been set aside for the annual State of the City report. It is a long report, so please bear with me here. I'm going to have to drink in the middle of it. So it's always a privilege for me to be able to give the State of the City address, and there's never really honestly enough time for the State of the City address, and to be able to do it its importance and stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and just go down through some of the highlights of what's happened in the past year, and what will happen, what we're looking forward to some in the coming year. This will not be all, but it's definitely some. We've got 21 pages to read, so when I say it's long, it's definitely long. At Pocatello Regional Airport, Frigitech broke ground on a 280,000 square foot cold storage facility with operations expected to begin in the spring of 2021. On the airfield side, multiple improvement projects, including pavement rehabilitation, a new concrete pad for heavy aircraft, and more were completed in 2020. 2 new private hangars were also completed and a third is under construction. In 2021, airport staff are planning to install a one-of-a-kind origami art exhibit in the terminal building and complete a 10-year master plan for airport growth and future site development. 2020 saw the Animal Services Department implement a new community cat program with the help of Best Friends Animal Society. Through the program, Animal Services staff set traps in areas of the city with known community cats or stray colonies. Once the cats are trapped, they are taken to a local veterinarian's where the cats are spayed and neutered and given a rabies vaccination. The cats in the program are returned to the area where they were originally found. One healthy cat, or only healthy cats will be returned, and they will have their ears notched for identification purposes. The year also saw a host of facility improvements at the Pocatello Animal Shelter, including a mural on the south side fence of the facility, new cat kennels inside the building, new concrete for outside kennels, and more. In 2020, the building department issued over 3,400 building permits with a combined valuation of nearly $56 million. This includes permits issued for 107 new residential buildings constructed over the course of the year. In 2020, saw the fire department selected as one of 25 departments across the country to be a part of the National Fire Protection Association's Community Risk Reduction Pilot Program. Through the initiative, the department has access to a digital risk visualization dashboard powered by software called My Sidewalk, which employs local and national data to guide planning around fire and life safety efforts. The year also saw several of our firefighters deployed to wildfires across the West, including northern Idaho, Oregon, Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. In 2021, the fire department will continue its efforts in working and updating the 5-year strategic plan for the fire department. The information technology department in 2020 saw staff provide support for numerous online meetings as the COVID-19 pandemic forced the city to move meetings into a digital platform. The pandemic also saw the department expand its remote workforce capabilities as employees worked from home. The year also saw the expansion of fiber optic connection to fire stations, Zoo, Idaho, Pocatello Regional Airport, Pocatello Animal Shelter, and the Marshall Public Library. At the Marshall Public Library, 2020 saw staff retool many of its offerings because of COVID-19 pandemic. The library significantly increased its electronic materials section, developed new services including curbside and quick pickups, implemented online programming opportunities, and more. The library also made a switch to the Kona Library operating system, providing patrons with much more intuitive interface. In 2020, Mayor Blatt awarded Pocatello's Promise of Tomorrow Mayoral Scholarship to 5 graduating high school seniors. They were given 2-year scholarships, each totaling $2,000. The scholarship program was funded by local financial institutions, along with the Pocatello Chubbuck Chamber of Commerce Foundation. In February, the City Council hosted a town hall meeting with residents. The meeting allowed residents to ask questions, provide comments, or share concerns. The meeting was met with positive feedback from those who attended. On taxes, the city levied $358,000 less tax for fiscal year 2021 than it did in fiscal year 2020. Additionally, the city also opted into the Governor Brad Little's public safety proposal for use of federal coronavirus relief funds for public safety personnel salaries. The city of Pocatello was allocated $4.9 million from the governor's program, which was estimated to give Pocatello taxpayers a one-time savings of $214.54 per $100,000 of taxable value on their 2020 tax bill. according to the City of Pocatello Finance Department. In October, the City Council said goodbye to City Clerk Ruth Newsom, who retired after more than 17 years at the city. In 2021, the department will prepare for the city's November general election and continue its efforts regarding taxes and services. Parks and Recreation Department received a great deal of help from the community in 2020. Thanks to Connections Credit Union and the Zoo Idaho Zoological Society, construction started on the Zoo Connections entrance and gift shop. The new log cabin building will house ticketing and concessions area, a gift shop, and restrooms. Construction is slated to be complete in time for the zoo's 2021 opening. With the help of Western States Caterpillar, a new Americans with Disabilities Act compliant path was developed at Zoo Idaho. The walkway is adjacent to Rocky Mountain Elk exhibit and continues south, providing ADA accessibility to the zoo's upper level. At the Ross Park Aquatic Complex, the Zoo Death Pool, the Zero Death Pool, and the Lazy River were both resurfaced. Thanks to Portneuf Health Trust, the Outdoor Recreation Division has new equipment to develop and maintain trails in the area, including a mini excavator, mini skid steer, and a transport trailer, and more. With it, staff was able to develop over 5 miles of trail in the Highland area and also perform trail repairs and renovation in the City Creek area. In 2021, the Parks and Recreation Department plans to bring the completed Ross Park Master Plan to the City Council for adoption. Introduce a Partnership for Opportunities program and develop additional sections at the Mountain View Cemetery. In 2020, saw the Pocatello Police Department participate in multiple community projects and efforts during the year, including trunk or treats, Secret Santa, drug take back, and more. The department raised $10,000 and received more than 200 turkeys as part of the Give the Cops the Bird Turkey Thanksgiving fundraiser. Officers were also involved in the Unity Walk, along with Idaho State University, students in response to the civil unrest happening around the country. Looking ahead at 2021, the department looks to implement body-worn cameras for every officer. The cameras will assist the documentation of incidents and review of use of force, citizens' complaints, and other interactions. The cameras will be implemented in January as the manufacturer's production has been delayed due to COVID-19. The engineering department took home awards from the American Public Works Association and the Association of Idaho Cities for its work on Northgate Interchange, public-private partnership, at the Pocatello Creek restoration. In 2021, the department will be working on multiple lift stations, rehabilitation efforts, water line extensions and replacements on Bullock Street and Gould Street, and manhole replacements along McKinley Avenue. In 2020 marked the first full year of operations for a fleet service department and saw an integrated in-house parts store come to the facility. I might just add here that we have seen a savings of $251,000 this past year. The fleet department has right-sized 43 underutilized assets and auctioned those assets off for a total of $106,000 to give the city a total of about $360,000 of new money or money that was saved from taxes. Over the course of 2020, staff in the GIS system division created a new web map application that provides the public with maps including zoning, recreation, local trails, and more for the city of Pocatello and surrounding areas. The sanitation department started its front load collection program. The new trucks allow for more efficient collection of commercial refuge, and as well as improve safety for the crews while handling the containers. The glass recycling program collected roughly 180 tons of glass in 2020. This year's Science and Environment Division added 4 river access points with help of Parks and Recreation Department. Outdoor Recreation Division, as well as community partners, Idaho Department of Fish and Game, Bannock County, and the Bureau of Land Management. These access points are located at Taysom Rotary Park, Cheyenne Bridge, Edson Fichter Nature Area, and Portneuf Road. Let's see, the street operations treated nearly 31 miles of Pocatello's roads in 2020. Department staff also installed a new stormwater pump near Donrich. The year also saw new signal coordination plans implemented on US Highway 30 corridor and South Yellowstone corridor. 2020 saw the water department replace 1.5 miles of main line in Pocatello. Working with the utility billing department, crews replaced nearly 2,900 encoded receiver transmitter devices. The devices allow staff to remotely read water meters for businesses and residents without having to open the meter vault. The new year will see the departments complete the design process for the new Highland Bench area booster station and transmission line. The facility will provide systems redundancy and additional capacity to the northern portions of Pocatello. The Water Pollution Control Department completed a rerouting of Sublet lift station in 2020. With the improvements, the discharge line no longer crosses the Portneuf River. Additionally, nearly 2 miles of carry-in place pipe were installed in the city. In 2020, Pocatello Regional Transit provided over 211,000 passenger trips during the fiscal year. 2021 will see the department looking to purchase 5 new buses for the urban and rural programs. The COVID-19 pandemic caused multiple changes to the city's operations, including limited access to City Hall and Pocatello Animal Shelter, pickup options at the Marshall Public Library, and many others. Thank you to the residents and the citizens who have been understanding during this time as we have worked to comply with federal, state, and local mandates. In November, the City Council adopted a face covering ordinance following a proclamation from the mayor and a resolution from the City Council encouraging mask use earlier in this year. As you can see from tonight's meeting, they will continue to review the need for the mandate each month. The City of Pocatello, along with Portneuf Health Partners, Idaho State University, Pocatello-Chubbuck School District 25, and Pocatello-Chubbuck Chamber of Commerce, partnered with Southeast Idaho Public Health in the Stay Smart, Stay Safe, Stay Open campaign. That campaign aims to remind citizens of the importance of practicing the key strategies in battling against the COVID-19. As part of the campaign, the City of Pocatello has been sharing relevant information via the city's social media channels and app Pocatello Connect. Since March, the city has shared or created more than 700 pieces of content, resulting in more than 2,600 social media posts. Staff has also created a COVID-19 resource page on the city's website at pocatello.us/coronavirus. Additionally, the city has produced videos featuring COVID-19 survivors and medical professionals explaining how the disease has impacted them. The videos can be found on the Southeast Idaho Public Health's Facebook page. As it will take time for the vaccines to roll out into 2021, it is more important than ever to continue wearing a mask, washing your hands, staying home when you are sick, practicing social distancing, and covering your mouth and nose when you sneeze or cough. I might just add a few other things as I end this report. The city of Pocatello, I believe, and unemployment rates and numbers have shown that the city of Pocatello has fared okay. I'm not going to say great, but I'm going to say okay through this pandemic. Our businesses have been able to remain open. We've been able to keep people as safe as we possibly can. We do have numbers that have continued to increase. We have numbers that have leveled out a little bit. And I think everybody's hope is that we'll be able to stop wearing these masks at some time in the very near future. I would be remiss if I did not also mention one thing, how grateful I am to live in a community that treats people with respect and honor as we have worked through this position. Over this last year, we've seen a lot of civil unrest. Up to yesterday, where we saw something that I never thought I would see in my lifetime in Washington, D.C. It breaks my heart to see that. I want you to know how proud I am of our community and members of our community, that when they have protested civilly, they have done it the right way, and we've been able to agree to disagree in many, many different ways. I would urge people in the last minute of this discussion to please remember to treat people as people. Please look at your neighbors, look at people and see them for who they are. They're not objects. None of us are perfect. We all know that. But as you go throughout this next year, as we continue to show the world what makes Pocatello such a great place to live, please remember to treat people as people, regardless if we agree or disagree with them. Thank you very much for everything you've done in this year and for everything that's happened as we've developed this last year in 2020. I'm looking forward. I would like to thank the council for all the work that they've done. We have not always agreed, but we've always come out with the best solution, and I appreciate being able to work with 6 of the finest people I've met in my life. And I'm grateful for that. It is not easy, and the council knows that and understands that. And I hope citizens, as you go throughout this next year, will please remember that very thing. This is not an easy thing to do. And as we continue to treat people as people, we will continue to succeed as a community. Thank you to the community for all that you've done. Thank you for your example throughout the rest of the world of how to agree to disagree. With that, thank you very much, and I will end my report. With that, we will move to agenda item 18, items from the audience. The topics of the individuals signed up to speak do not meet the criteria for this agenda item. After consulting with the city attorney, it was determined that we do not have anybody that is signed up that can, under this agenda item, speak. So with that, council, thank you very much. Thank you for a great year. I'm looking forward to working with all of you in 2021. And with that, we are adjourned from this meeting. Thank you.